You're listening to Turi Ryder's She Said What podcast. I'm Turi, along with Marci Persky. In this installment, the gig economy may or may not be working well for the gig holders, but it's not exactly a raging success with this podcaster. And Marci confronts, yet again, abundant cats, abundant cages, and one loony old lady. Your suggestion for the tarot cards of COVID, I think, is getting lots of approval. People would like a tarot card reader for COVID of what kind of COVID you'll get. So your business plan has potential here.
Good. I need the money.
You and the money.
We might not even need the cards. They might just have to send me a picture of themselves, and I can do like, and then they pay me $100. I can tell them what flavor COVID is coming down the pike.
I think this is the plan.
I am highly, highly reliable, respected. I'm worked for the psychic hotline for Diane Warwick.
Did you really?
No.
I would love to meet somebody who had done that. I met somebody who had done phone sex, but I've never met anybody who worked for the psychic hotline.
I don't think that anyone could disprove it. If they ask for my credentials, all I have to do is type out a piece of paper that says I worked for the psychic hotline, because I don't think it exists anymore.
It was a great thing while it lasted.
I could also say I was, the Empress of Brussels. I mean, who's going to disprove anything?
Well, there are certain news networks that would go with that, no problem.
There you go.
Yeah, you could get on certain news networks like that. It's very interesting, like the whole thing about what people believe on the news and what they don't. It really, we were talking about smorgasbords the other day. You can have the eggs, you can have the pancakes. News was not supposed to be like that. I don't know what the heck happened. And it doesn't matter which political perspective you come from. I flipped on a radio station here in town, not the big, hugely successful one that perpetually spouts a bunch of misinformation, but the one that's supposed to align more with my views, and that host was spouting dangerous horsewash, which bothered me even more. Don't you get angrier when it's somebody who's supposedly representing your viewpoint who's spouting horsewash?
Well, when I was in journalism, the number one thing that I was taught, and I haven't forgotten to this day, is if your mother tells you that she loves you, check it out.
I like that. That probably explains a lot of my relationship with my mother now that you mention it.
But it's baffling to me how people can listen to outrageous, quote unquote, facts from a singular, quote unquote, news service and believe it as gospel. I wonder if these are the same people that used to read the Weekly World News and think that was true.
No, that's the awful part. No, that's the terrible part of it. They're people who used to read legit news sources. And I mean, look, one of my favorite legitimate newspapers had an editorial page that just smoked my buns. I couldn't stand to look at it. But the news was sacrosanct. Nobody touched their news department. And I subscribed to that paper. But here's the thing. It seems that people want their editorial page and the news to be one and the same.
That's true.
It's very weird because even the newspapers I subscribe to that have editorial pages that are the same as my views are serving me on my phone the opinion pieces before they serve me the news pieces. So that smokes my buns.
Yep.
And then, so if you read, the Washington Happy Paper, let's just say, and you want their news department, you click on your phone on the app, they start serving you the opinion pieces. Flip over to the other day, the newspaper carrier delivered the wrong paper to us. It happens that they delivered the paper that I used to think highly of, except for the editorial page. I hadn't seen that paper in a while. It looks pathetic. It looks like a horizontal version of the Weekly World News now. It's all pictures. The type is 5 times as big. It's half as thick. I'm thinking to myself, is this now printed for people who have these crazy views from their editorial. Who is this for now? It went straight to the recycling bin. I was bummed.
No, that's money. That's called cutting that back staff. So we don't have it as much in print. So we have to make the pictures bigger. In my perfect world, all news is objective. And that's my perfect world that will never be again. And I just want to know, how are your buns? Because they sound pretty well smoked.
They're pretty smoked. Although I want to point out that news that's objective is not always objective. I know a certain editor who worked in a certain newsroom a few decades ago who used to take PR pieces from someone whose views this person found highly objectionable and simply put them in the recycling bin.
Okay.
And I remember this person saying to me, they don't need any more press from us.
There's a wide line between PR and news.
Yes, that's true. There is. But sometimes they're publicizing stuff that's actually going to be news. And so it's not only how the thing is covered, it's what's covered at all. So that's part of it. Anyway,
that's true too.
I'm annoyed. I've pretty much been annoyed all week. My challenge of this week is so pathetic, I'm embarrassed to admit how pathetic it is. I bought a used giant stove from a nonprofit, the Restore. That's Habitat for Humanity's thrift store for construction stuff that supports their building, right? And it's a big, heavy residential, not a commercial stove. And I cannot, for the life of me, find anyone to move it from point A to the nonprofit kitchen that's point B. We've been through just about every app the gig economy provides. The Dolly people showed up to move it with, I don't know, a feather duster and a wheelchair or something equally suited to the task. And then the first thumbtack guy we hired just didn't show up. And then the second thumbtack guy we hired, I spent 3 hours eating the leftover snacks and staring at the walls in the destination kitchen, and the stove never got picked up. So I Googled the name of the company and called the number that way, and it's some guy who is unaware that anybody is on Thumbtack using his company name.
Yeah, see? Cheapest is not always the best.
No. Well, it wasn't cheap. It was just cheapest. So I just left a crappy review for these people, and they wrote back a text and used the N-word at me.
Oh, no.
I know.
Really? Really?
Yeah, but the colloquial version that ends with an A and not an R.
Oh, okay.
But that's no better. They called me.
Classy people.
Anyway, then I realized my fatal flaw. You can't just see that there are good reviews. You have to count up how many good reviews there are. And Thumbtack serves you first the people with the least reviews. That's their algorithm.
Nice.
And then somebody recommended this TaskRabbit app. This gig economy is not working for me. So the TaskRabbit thing, you have to combine your rabbits if you want more than one of them.
And you should talk to Eve and her Rabbit Foundation.
You have to do it. You hire one guy with a box truck, and his note says, if you want another person, you can help yourself, or you can hire another person. And I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea for me to be combining rabbits. I know what happens when you do that. You get a bunch of helpless little rabbits.
Now you can help me with my last 48 hours.
What happened?
I got a phone call. I got a phone call from a lady the night before last who has 48 cats in her house.
Oh, no.
And she's being evicted the next day.
I wonder why. Why is she being evicted, do you suppose?
I wonder why she let me know with less than a day notice.
Why is this a mystery to you? If you're the kind of person who has 48 cats in your house, of course you're the kind of person who's in denial that you're actually going to be evicted.
And you know what? Someone with that many cats has other issues.
Right. That is my point exactly.
And I spoke to the animal control officer, and he said he's actually been working with this woman for months to try and convince her that this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But no action was ever taken. And so today she's calling me and telling me that she was evicted yesterday, but she didn't want to leave because of her 48 cats. And it's hard to get a straight kind of a story, if you know what I mean.
Sure,
like,
she's nuts. Nuts is what she is.
And kind of old. And it kind of follows this thing I saw on the internet that says, do you think a cat would take in 48 old ladies?
That's a good meme.
And well, it explains the whole thing, but it's giving me a headache because the lady is annoying, but I do care about these cats.
Can you divide the herd of, what is it? Is it a herd of cat? What is 48 cats? A flock? A
Too
herd?
many.
Yes.
It's too many.
Can you divide them amongst the rescues? Can you each take like 10?
Yes, I'm trying to beg other rescues to take 3, take 4, kind of. And some of these cats are very expensive designer cats too.
How do you know?
Well, because Taylor Swift has Scottish fold cats. One of those cats is not to be mistaken for anything else but a Scottish fold. They've got funny little ears.
Where'd she get these cats?
They're thousands of dollars.
Where?
Oh, you mean the lady?
Yeah, did she buy them?
You know what? No, I think she took them in from outside, or I don't know what she did. I really have problem talking to her because she has communication issues, to put it nicely.
Yeah. Why don't you call Taylor Swift and ask for her help?
I know. Some of these are Norwegian forest cats, too.
What the heck is a Norwegian forest cat?
They're huge.
Great.
They're like the size of bobcats, and they are very furry.
Aye.
But most of them are just your basic run-of-the-mill, grab out of my yard kind of cat. And she has them all in cages.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, it's just bad on top of bad on top of bad.
Just be glad you're not the animal control officer who has to walk into that house.
I know.
I once was on an airplane, and the only show that I could watch was one of these house flipping shows. And I think they were a married couple, and now they're divorced, which is probably the only thing that sounds realistic about a house flipping show. That if you remodel enough houses with your partner, you will get divorced. They open the door to this place they're considering taking on as a project, and it's completely empty except for one of those carpeted platform things for cats. What's that called? A cat tree. And the then wife says to the husband, she says, as soon as I saw the cat tree in the window, I knew this was going to be really bad. And she goes, I love these places. If you just can breathe for a day or two while you rip it all out, there's potential. And I'm thinking, you need a gas mask. You need like a Jacques Cousteau diving mask. You need to rip out. But I have seen that done. We had a property. Our house in Oakland, the house just up the hill, was literally coming apart between the ceiling and the wall. And the guy who lived there was an insane animal, not so much hoarder, but neglector. And we called the owners several times, and they accused us of being prejudiced against their tenant. And we're like, no, he leaves his dog in the yard all day with a 50-pound sack of dog food. And we have more vermin leaping in and out of your house than you would find at a pet store in the snake feeding department. You got to do something. And they hung up on us and were angry at us. And finally the guy passed away, and we got a knock on our door from the owner, whom we'd never met, apologizing. And I'm thinking, dude, if a neighbor takes the trouble to look you up and say, you're running a rat festival over there and your tenant is insane, I'd be over it. I'd get on a plane and go look at my property. People don't make up stuff like that. What? And that house, the wall and the roof of the house had separated because it's California and they have earthquakes. And the place was full of excrement, but some fly-by-night contractors came, glued it back together, and they sold it for an enormous chunk of money.
You know what I have to say about that?
What?
Why do all doctors' offices make you watch those home fixing shows too?
Maybe they would like you to believe that a little shiplap will fix what ails you.
No, my eye doctor, that's all they show. When we were going from emergency room to emergency room after I fell off the deck, every single place had the same channel.
You're probably the only patient who would have a visceral reaction to that show that's like traumatic. Most people would see those shows and they would feel hopeful. They would feel like, look, we can take any pile of junk and make it beautiful, including my damaged body.
Instead, I'm like, no!
Too bad a little shiplap couldn't work on you, Marci.
I know. I wish.
If you've made it this far, chances are you've been enjoying Turi Ryder's She Said What podcast, in which case you might also like my book, She Said What, A Life on the Air. You can find that at your neighborhood independent bookstore or on Amazon. Marci and I really appreciate your good reviews wherever you care to leave them. Your kind words help the podcast grow. Thanks.